Thank you all for being here. I want to have this moment for you to introduce yourself and say the things that you need to say as well, but also with the same question, what is the most important element of resistance in your daily work and life that you want to highlight? Raki, maybe you first?
Sure. Thank you so much, Alec, for the introduction. Before I start telling a little bit more about myself, I really want to embrace and honor the leadership of the Tibetans right here in this room, our female leadership, my ancestors who are here, your ancestors, and also those fallen warriors. I want to acknowledge them in this space because on their shoulders is that we continue our work. Wah, wah, wah. So my name is Raki. I'm a West Papuan independence leader. I'm the international spokesperson for liberation movement since last September. Before that, I was the international spokesperson for our campaign, basically in the Netherlands, educating people about what is happening in West Papua. Also acknowledging the previous panel and all they have said, where we will continue on. So where do you start when your country is a former Dutch colony, this country, this city, where, as you've heard, even lecturers and history teachers are not aware about what is happening in their former colony, happening today. My father's story, the assassination 4 months before my birth, is just one of the 500,000 of stories of less than 2 million people, a fourth killed in the total silence of the world. Where do you start? The last thing I want to say is that you go out here hopeless, because we are still here, like the Tibetans, Uyghurs, and many oppressed people. Why? As we've heard, because we feel the urgency, like in Ukraine or other parts that people oppressed. We feel the urgency of our ancestors, our lands, our rivers, our mountains, our people being destroyed. You will not run away. You will fight back. So this is where I started to grow up, educating myself in the best way I can to fight back, restore the stories that they've been erasing for the last 60 years. And I'm really happy to have been invited to join this panel, to arm myself with other freedom fighters, activists, academics, to build alliances, because that's the answer to all the oppressions against our people and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raki. Thank you. Sam, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Sam. I've been active with Extinction Rebellion for about 4 years now. I choose to get arrested and use my body in protest to make a point about, well, it started for me about the climate, but really about a wide range of topics as oppression is everywhere. And through those protests, I got in trouble at my work. They didn't like my picture of getting arrested in the newspaper, and I quit out of principle. And ever since then, I've been a full-time activist, and I've been so honored to meet so many fellow activists, and I've seen you speak at protests many times. Yeah, I think for me, resistance is really the way to find and cultivate and grow your own hope amidst the darkness with the people you find there in the common fight.
Wow, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Chemi Lhamo. I consider myself a community organizer. I have held various titles, but they're, of course, as a Tibetan Buddhist, impermanent. So they come and go, and currently I hold the title of Campaigns Director at SFT. And SFT is an organization, but more so is part of the Tibetan freedom movement. And in the Tibetan freedom movement, what we do is we try to make the cost of occupation for the Chinese government of our nation, Tibet, expensive. And how do we do that? We do this through education, grassroots mobilization, and using strategic nonviolent direct action. And so through these various mediums, we are constantly working on not just challenging the illegal invasion of our nation, but also building a next generation of leaders that will continue and sustain our movements. Why? Because in part of my introduction, I was born stateless, a third generation stateless being in India. I've never seen my homeland. So when I introduce myself to people, I say, I'm a Tibetan who's never seen Tibet. So when you ask, about resistance, for me and many of our people, existence, our mere existence is part of our resistance. Why? When there's a colonial body out there that is actively erasing your people, have not only killed and destroyed your land, but has severed the ties of your people both inside and in exile, every aspect of our being as we embody our names, space, have our allies with us in this movement, like I do share space with you all today. We're part of this movement, and this is resistance. We exist, and we continue to boldly exist, and that is, for me, our resistance.
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahmedjan Kasim and I'm a political secretary of Dutch Uyghur Human Rights Foundation. I was born in Urumqi, East Turkestan, which is occupied by Chinese Communist Party and People's Republic of China. And when I was 15, I came to the Netherlands and I seek refuge here with my mom. And from 2020, actually starting of the beginning of the Corona crisis, I've started to participate in Uyghur activism here in the Netherlands. So I have done it in different levels. So I approached different politicians, also in the municipal level and professional level, and also on the on the parliament level. And besides, I've write the book about Uyghurs, The Uyghur Dream, which is published in 2022 in Dutch. So it is the first book. It was written about Uyghurs in the Netherlands. For me, resistance means two things. One is personal level. As a majority of you may know that the Uyghurs are put in concentration camps since 2017. Unfortunately, my dad is one of the victims in the concentration camp. I've heard that he is sentenced in 2023. In 2023, I've heard that he was sentenced to concentration camp for 15 years. So it will be 2032 if he's healthy to get out the concentration camp. I haven't have contact with my family member for like 7-8 years now. I don't know the whereabouts of my family members, and I don't know whether they are alive. So there's some personal level, and second is on the legal level, because I have a legal background. I've studied law. I've mastered in constitutional and administrative law in the Netherlands. One of the first few questions we've been asked when we study constitutional law is, why do we have a constitution? Because somewhere in the history, somewhere at some point, we agreed on, so these are the terms that we agree on. So we don't discriminate, we don't kill each other, we accept everyone despite the religion, gender, etc. We don't discriminate anyone. And that also same goes also for the international law. That's one of the few reasons why that I think that resistance is not only the responsibility of us, but also for everyone, because after the World War II, we have agreed on one of the broken promise, I think, that is never again, because a lot of things happened again after the Second World War. So we all have the responsibility to protect minorities, protect who are being oppressed. I take it on these two levels, so personal level and also on the legal level. So we agreed on that we will not let these things happen again. So we all have the responsibility to prevent these things happening again.
So I've again been blessed with this amazing panel. I want to ask a question about grassroots movements and community building, because you all have experience in that in some way or another. because in a way that is the ultimate form of resistance. And the reason I want to ask a question as well is because of the previous panel talking about the difficulty of mobilization, the question of obligation and responsibility. So maybe in that context, can you reflect on that question as well as give me a very difficult answer to a difficult question? How do you build a community that works? Raki.
Yeah, let me underline it. That's a big question. Yeah, but let me make it really personal. So when I came in the Netherlands, I grew up as a Dutch citizen. The first thing I thought, how to contribute to peace is join the military. Yeah? That's what you learn as young kid, especially in countries like the Netherlands. So I joined the army in the Netherlands, thinking, I'm contributing to peace and justice, understanding that military is just an institution serving politics with another agenda. So that's what transformed me to become an activist, joining Extinction Rebellion and the climate movement, anti-racist movement, because I saw the intersection of people being oppressed by a certain system, and the system has a name, which is colonialism, which is militarism, which is extractivism, exploiting land and people. So when I was in the military, I was basically learning everything I could to understand what system is destroying my people for much too long. So I tried to learn at a depth, because what they do is they map out people and make them fight against each other so they can continue make profit. So what the opposite is, building bridges and alliances with movement on the grassroots, on the streets, with people who fight against, for example, a police organization, because there's a lot of discrimination. So you find the right people, build movement alliances, and that's where change is happening. That you build friends and you create change in a certain system. And over time, from a vulnerable guy here in The Hague, not being educated properly, to at this very moment running on the highest level, talking with governments, heads of states, powerful institutions, educating them, pushing them into the shit to listen, because I know how the system has been failing. So learning how the system didn't work out for most people and try to fix it from grassroots level. That's how I try to become part of that change.
Do you tailor then the method of community building at the faults of the system? So you educate people on it, you know the broken promises of the system. Do you fit in there?
So first is that I've become victim myself in many ways, as part of being a Dutch citizen, but not having all the same opportunities like, a white kid. So you feel the racism in the society. But at the same time, in the square that I grew up, it's a middle class square, a neighborhood that we see that the people that I grew up with didn't have the same opportunities. So you see there's a difference in those systems. So how do you, fight against, you fight for that equality? So you collaborate, you create an opportunity yourself by bringing the people who feel the same pain together. You strategize, you make a plan, and you force a change or a policy in your environment, in the policy or in your city or in your neighborhood. I think that's an example that I personally did.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah. The climate movement in the Netherlands has a lot of discussion about how to build community and how broad to make things, what connections to make with other types of movements. And it's a very frustrating process, and it's people work. It can really get down to just individual conversations with people to convince them that there's strength in having those communities with other organizations. Extinction Rebellion in the Netherlands has always been in solidarity with the Kick Out Zwarte Piet movement against the racist caricature of Zwarte Piet. But there have been people who want to really only focus on the climate and left our movement because of that, and we couldn't convince them in time. And but being in solidarity with anti-racism movements has been a great strength to us, and has been really valuable. And I'm glad that we're still doing that. But it is work, and I think back, because it's also International Women's Day, back to the suffragettes who were fighting for women's rights, and there were discussions amongst that group: do we fight for only white women's rights or all women's rights, and some thought that it was unstrategic to include black women's voting rights and that we could get the job done faster if we focus only on white women's rights. And you can call that a strategic argument, but it's racism. And in the end, we'll never know how it would have happened another way, but white women did have the voting right before black women. And I really hope we can learn from lessons like that and find the solidarity amongst movements to really lift ourselves up together, because the fight is against injustice and against inequality, instead of just the super specific boxes that you can place all the different types of oppression into. Yeah.
That's a very good question. Very good answer. I want to maybe quickly ask you about how to balance that, because it's very easy to make that strategic argument once you are suffering so much. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, it is of course important to have specific movements about specific topics, also, so you can be an expert on those specific topics, and it's important to not overtake someone else's movement because you want to participate so badly. So of course you're going to have different movements on different topics, and they're their own thing, and that's good. But to work together, to make those connections, and to listen to each other. Hey, we're both fighting against oppression. What does your group need? What is your group's method of fighting that? And then again, it's really the personal connections, the individual conversations that make that work happen. It's a lot of just work. It doesn't just happen magically because you say that you're in solidarity.
Thank you. Chemi?
When we talk about movements, there's sort of three aspects to a successful movement, at least what some of the theorists say, right? It's unity, planning, and discipline. And unity is one of the first ones in it, which is talking about building community, in my interpretation of it at least. And in my tradition, the first things that we learn in our philosophy is that nothing exists on its own, right? Everything is dependently originating. And if you look at it, it is actually true. There was a million of causes and conditions that came together that allowed you to be here, sitting here, watching us, and us to be here, sharing this moment. If you missed your train that was changing all around today in Netherlands, you wouldn't be here, right? And so there is a reason, but also lots of causes and conditions just perfectly aligned for us to be here today. So similarly, when it comes to oppression and our resistance movement, it's really a question about power. Right? It's about consolidating power, keeping the power. How do we build power that challenges that power? So when we're talking about power, for us, community is built by understanding that it is a circular environment that consists of all of us. And very quickly, if you believe in a free Tibet, can you please raise your hand? Keep your hands raised. If you believe that you have the right to be free, can you raise your hand? If you believe in the right for other people to be free, raise your hand. This is it. Look around, it's everybody. We just built community, right? And not just that. If whoever raised their hand, can you say together, because today is about Tibet Days, can you say the words free Tibet? Free Tibet. There's solidarity. It's not as easy as this, but really, if we simplify it back to building power, building community, it's being able to understand that there's so much more that we should fight for rather than fight against. It's easy to say I'm against the Chinese government, but it's harder to build community and solidarity to say because I believe in freedom, because I believe in the right for me to be free, but I also believe in the right for my Uyghur brothers and sisters to be free, you know, everyone else to be free. And so we're fighting for something rather than fighting against something.
Thank you so much. Yes, round of applause. Maybe to follow up, you have created just a community. How do you retain that community?
There's many ways. There's also challenges. I think, you know, I draw a lot of sustenance and strength from my tradition. And in my tradition, actually, one of the first truths is actually that truth of suffering, that suffering exists. So it's not this toxic positivity of, yeah, we're love and freedom, peace. No, it's actually hard. It's hard. You know, March 10th is coming up. We all are going, everyone who is a Tibetan and a Tibetan ally will be on the streets, right? Everyone else, are you going to be on the streets with us? That's a question, right? I think a professor said he has a strike on March 10th. And I said, oh, that's amazing. So he's got his own duties. And so I think it's understanding the complexities and nuances of life and allowing people to reach at their own pace. Of course, it comes at a cost, but that time, I think my colleagues here have already shared some of the ways in which you can engage with community. And if you're driven by, as His Holiness says, the more you're driven by love, the more free and fearless you will be.
Thank you so much. Ahmedjan.
It's been really inspiring to listen to all of you and also the previous panelists. The Uyghur community, one of the few things that I have realized is that the Uyghur community is, dominated by specific kind of people. Say older people, older male, female, and there are really few younger generations, especially in this part of the world, so in Europe. And I see that there are a lot of Uyghur youth organizations in the United States. They've been more effective than in Europe. So that's what I'm look up to. And what I also have realized is that because Uyghurs have never experienced democracy, they come to Europe, they come to United States or Canada, they will experience democracy for the first time, and they will feel really happy, as they should, because it's freedom. But as a constitutional legalist, the democracy is more than only feeling freedom, but also participate, and also knowing that democracy is not majorities has everything to say, but you also have to keep in mind what minority thinks. So in that matter, I try to let my people know that democracy is more than election, that democracy is more than free speech, that democracy is a broad concept. So I try to tell my Uyghur community to learn more about democracy. And because Uyghurs, many of us are getting frustrated because things don't go really well and things aren't working out. We have been fighting for Uyghur rights for quite a few years now in the Netherlands, from 2017 till now, I think 8 years. We have achieved a lot, but we also achieved not much. Because what we eventually seek is our freedom and independence for East Turkestan. But we didn't have achieved that yet, and many of the people are getting frustrated because things are not happening. There are 10 or 12 parents here in the Netherlands. They have got kids back in East Turkestan, but they cannot come to the Netherlands. They will call me and call my colleague while crying about that they miss their kids, but they don't have anything to get their kids to the Netherlands. So it's really hard to explain to them that democracy works in such a way that it's not really easy to go through the process. It will take time, and it will take a lot of times. So that's why I try every time when I engage with my own community, I try to explain to them that democracy is not like dictatorship, that you write something down and second day will happen, or maybe 1 hour later, but it will take times. So also for our kind of work, activism, it takes times.
How do you keep getting them engaged? Because you explain it once, but maybe they'll forget it the next week or in a month, and they'll return back to their normal patterns. How do you keep them engaged in this, let's say, constructive manner?
I think one of the most important things is being active on the way that they can see you, they can what you're talking about, things they worry about, and also showing results, even though they're really little. I think in half year ago we started a campaign within the Uyghur community for our names, because when Uyghurs come to Netherlands to seek refuge, they will normally they will have a Chinese passport and their name is written in Chinese fashion, but they want to change their name. It's kind of small thing, because when you talk about geopolitics and politics policies, these are some small things you will imagine. But for a lot of Uyghurs, meant a lot that we have put some such initiative within our organization. So we approach a lawyer, and he will do it for free for Uyghurs, because he knows about Uyghurs. So a lot of Uyghur people are approaching us because they're seeing results, that things are getting better, and also in this specific case, that their names are going to be changed in the name that they want.
And maybe to add on to that, it means so much for people to be named by their real name and not to be imposed, not to be changed, not to be lied about. Maybe I always told this, like, I'm Alarik Ablikim. When I came to the Netherlands, I was Ala or Ke Abuli Kemu, because it was transliterated from Chinese. So like, this is so painful for people because you're not giving them the voice on the most fundamental level. I want to today also mention about environmental destruction. Of course, we have climate activists on this, but in Tibet they're planning to build the largest dam in history that will even make the world go slower because of such a massive stoppage of water. And it was already mentioned on what the land, the mountains, the places that we have or surround ourselves with mean to us. And it's one thing to fight for it, but it's another thing for it to mean something to you. So I want to ask all of you, actually, in a way, what does your land, your place, your situation, your environment mean to you? Raki, please.
Wow, yeah, I think this is really an important question. If you look at the topics that we've touched, politics, cultural, environment, grassroots, these are not, separated subjects. These are all intertwined. Look, I've watched a video on the website of there's a campaign for Tibet, and seen the young kid touching the rock, saying that that's peace. The rivers, the mountains, the grass, the connection between people and environment is something that is ancient. You cannot separate those. When you erase that, where our entire identity is connected to the river, to the environment, if you destroy that, we will lose identity. And what oppressors do is they start to change who we are. Because that's when we do not know who are we on this planet? It makes you Tibetan or Uyghur or West Papuan or Dutch. So understanding that is what made me, very, active within the climate spaces as indigenous climate change activist. Basically educating all of them that nature and people are not things that you can put aside. We are connected to that. And the reason that we have detached nature from human being is why we are in this mess. Listening to the podcast of Tibet Talks, the hydro power plants, the biggest one that China is building now, knowing what it will do already is doing to many Tibetan people and their culture and the environment, is basically a lot of greenwashing, right? We're not solving anything. We're causing a lot of harm through a colonial system, which we can see in West Papua as well, where Indonesia, the fourth largest democracy, where we have the world's largest gold mine, second largest copper mine. Indonesia is the world's largest nickel exporter for the batteries and cars that you see, windmills, is what I'm, destroying the greenwashing narrative of the environmental movement and many governments, including China and Indonesia. Not solving anything, netto, zero, in reducing the carbon, because we have two systems. Colonialism, clearly on your lands, on my lands, and the energy transition, which is causing a lot of harm to our culture, environment, and peoples too. So this is something that resonates with me as activists, educating people the right way, that we're not solving anything. We're repeating a lot of harm against people, culture, environment because of this system that we're not properly mentioning or knowing how it looks like and what it's causing to our peoples. Leave it there.
Fantastic, thank you. Sam.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people in the Dutch climate movement, probably broader in the Western or global North climate movement, really have lost connection with their own land. I know especially here, because we've not been oppressed for so long, we take a lot of things for granted. And I don't know a lot of people in like my Dutch circles who really feel strongly connected to the land where they live, or any of the natural elements. People go to be on vacation in nature, but yeah, we get called tree huggers sometimes. Like, oh, climate activists are such tree huggers. I don't understand why other people aren't hugging trees. It's great to do, yeah. But also to then actually hug a tree, I don't think that a lot of us then actually feel proper connection. And I think that's a real shame, because you lose some sense of your ancestry and what you're fighting for. I think that a lot of the Dutch climate movement is rooted from a very cognitive viewpoint of, pollution of factories is bad, so I will do something about it, but you don't feel it in your body. And that then makes that when we see solutions to climate problems like solar panels, we go, great, that's clean, no CO2, let's do that. And then our colonialism of extracting fossil fuels from other places to use for our energy-intensive industry here just shifts to colonialism of rare earth minerals and resources for the energy transition. That's just colonialism 2.0. So there really needs to be more awareness of how those things are linked. But really also in the political left in the Netherlands, in the Western world, in the global North, there's just this discomfort with really reconciling with the fact that we gotta consume less energy. We cannot live with this exorbitant wealth while there's such poverty in the world. When there's this much inequality, we just cannot afford this level of luxury. But we have become so uncomfortable with the idea of giving up any of our luxuries that we will mine the rest of the earth for an extra solar panel instead of just being content with less.
Yeah. Agreed. And being more in touch with what you're fighting for also prevents you from straying from the path, right? Yeah. Chemi, please.
Tibet is known as the rooftop of the world, sometimes the third pole, and it's for a reason. Because the water source that comes from the Tibetan plateau actually is the water source for over 1.4 billion people. These are just statistics, right? But what is the actual impact on our communities? We're not talking about Tibet anymore. We're talking about the world's water resource. We're talking about billions of people that are downstream in the countries that could face flooding or droughts because of the dams that are being built right now, whether it's in Hague, across the Dichu River, all across Tibet, and the mega dam project, planned for 2025. Along with these constructions, what happens is the destruction of not just the land, but the people's connection to the land is so severe. It breaks my heart. But let me focus on rather sharing how much we're connected as Tibetan people to our land, which is your question. Tibetans not only believe in nature being part of our environment, but it's embedded in us. You know, our mountains are not just mountains that are sacred. Mountains are mountain deities. We call them yulas. We have, you know, each region has a protector deity that is associated with the mountains. And then there's all these pilgrimage sites where great yogis and, you know, realized beings have become realized in various caves that become sources of inspiration for us to be better practitioners. One thing that I think in all over the world of mindfulness we see is the prayer flags. Also very much celebrated by Tibetans. We recently just put prayer flags for our Losar, which is our Tibetan New Year. It has 5 colors. It's the 5 colors which are representative of not just the 4 elements plus space. And we recognize that our life is incomplete. It's not possible to live on this, not just earth, but the world without these elements. These elements exist within ourselves, but also in the environment. And so the connection is not just actually a connection, we're together. It's a symbiosis. And so we value the nature in such a way that it's part of us. And so when you're eroding our lands, you're again eroding the Tibetan people. And right now I'm thinking about all the environmentalists that have become political prisoners for simply standing up for their land, and specifically Anya Sendrak, who's still serving in prison, along with his folks that protested the illegal mining that happened in his area.
Thank you. Ahmedjan, from the mountains to the Netherlands.
When I tell people that I'm from East Turkestan, I'm Uyghur, they will usually say that I go to the school with horses and live in the mountain. But it's not true. I've come from Urumqi, is the capital city of East Turkestan, and it's 1/3 of the Netherlands. It's really a huge city. Recently I've experienced a fascinating story. It's not a story actually. I have a little brother. He is born in the Netherlands, and he's also Uyghur, and he and we went to an Uyghur event where Uyghur kids come, different parts of the Netherlands. They come together to play football and other things, sports. And after the event, we went home, and he told me, "Can I tell you something?" He said. I say, "Yeah, sure." And he goes like, "This is the place that I have felt that I can be myself." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "This is with these people, I don't have to explain to them who I am and what is my identity." And I found it fascinating because he's born in the Netherlands. He never experienced something we have experienced at Uyghur. And he's now at the second year of the, not elementary school. High school, I think. High school, second year of high school. And he's having Uyghur friends. He's talking with them via the telephone, because we don't have any Uyghurs where I live, because I live in the eastern part of the country, of the Netherlands. So we don't have that much of Uyghurs. So the connection, what we have with our country is so meaningful that even my brother, who was not born in that part of the world, is already connected to our country, and our identity and our connection to our land is so strong that I found it really fascinating that he told me. And he's now dating a Uyghur girl. He's 13, and
Holding hands.
yeah, holding hands. And my mom surprisingly didn't pick up the slipper, but she was like, "Yeah, I support it," and yeah, because she wants to be open-minded, and well, it's about connection to our land, right? So we don't talk about that anymore. Well, the thing I want to tell is that Uyghurs have really strong connection to our land, because that's the only place that I can feel home, that we can feel home, that we can be ourselves, even though we have immigrated to different parts of the world, especially in Central Asia, like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and also in Russia and Turkey, those places where we have much more common culture, that I will say. Also, the people there, they feel the connection to East Turkestan, even though they were not born there.
We have to finish, but I will take the full blame when they enter here angrily. Maybe room for one, maybe two of your questions, one or two questions. First come, first serve, please. Who has a pressing question? Yeah, in the back, gentleman in the back.
Yes, Terence Degenaar, ik ben donateur van deze trust. What I want to say is I'm so surprised that nobody mentioned about it. In Holland, you got a shop called Zeeman, you got Vibra, and you got Action. If you go into the shop and take a closer look where all those articles come from, I would say Chinese labor. Chinese labor. It's all done by labor and by cheap labor to bring that forwards. And I'm surprised that nobody mentioned about that.
Well, thank you for mentioning it and for filling the gap. And what would your question be to reflect on that?
Well, my question is, it should be more known to people that all those cheap products are nothing is for nothing. And it's based by slavery, like Oruge and other people.
Yes, and I will. Please, Chemi.
Thank you. I agree. I would like to encourage people who agree with your sentiments to think about not just presenting this as a moral choice, saying it's better, right? Which is true. We all know it in this room. If we can avoid made in China products, that's greater because you know that it's probably an Uyghur in the factories making it, or actually Tibetans, which has not been reported on extensively yet. But the encouragement is here that what is an alternative that we can provide? What is it? Another country that perhaps can become a trading partner, that can provide another alternative that is not only super cheap, is also still affordable. Because this concept of engaging in the activism of not buying products that are cheap is also hard for middle class, immigrants, refugees, marginalized communities. So how can our movement be also strategic? How can we now lobby our governments to talking about not doing trade with China, but then working with Taiwan? Let's talk about getting the chips from Japan, right? Where we know there's no safe trade. We did that with our coffees, right? Fair trade coffees everywhere is being cool. So let's do that now and provide that alternative option and not just bank on this, we should just boycott made in China. Yeah, but what is the alternative? Where is the other affordable price that we can give immigrants and community members that want the cheaper option that is also the right moral? Correct.
Yeah.
Together.
Agreed.
Together. Not easy.
One more. Yes, Ahmedjan, please.
I just want to add one more thing. That is, if there's political will, anything is possible. Before 24th of February 2022, if you say anything about Russian gas and our Russian gas dependence, there were no room for discussion here in this part of the world. But after 24th of February, within a year, we decreased our dependency on Russian gas within a year. So when there's crisis, when there's political will, everything is possible in this country.
Amen. And we have to unfortunately also just think about changing our behavior in many aspects. But I think Raki and Sam can elaborate on that. Unfortunately, we don't have the time. I also don't have the time for one more question because we still have a closing statement. But I want to first, I think, invite all the previous panelists up here as well. Please, can I get one more applause for everyone, for all the panelists?